It was just another Tuesday evening when Maria walked out of her small apartment with her old dog, Buddy. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. She had no idea that this simple walk would change her life forever. Maria was tired, after working her double shift at the diner. Her feet hurt and all she wanted was to give Buddy his evening walk before settling down for the night. Buddy was getting old now, moving slower than he used to. The golden retriever had been with her family for 12 years, ever since she came back from her time serving in the military. The neighborhood was quiet that evening. Kids were inside doing homework, and most people were having dinner. Maria liked these peaceful moments. After everything she had been through in the army, quiet evenings felt like a gift. As they walked down Maple Street, Maria noticed flashing lights ahead. A police car had pulled someone over near the corner store. She didn't think much of it at first. Traffic stops happened all the time in their neighborhood. But as she got closer, something didn't feel right. The officer was yelling very loudly at the driver, a young man who looked scared. Maria could hear the shouting from half a block away. The young man had his hands up, clearly trying to show he wasn't dangerous. Maria slowed down, keeping Buddy close to her side. The old dog seemed to sense something was wrong too. His ears were back and he kept looking up at Maria with worried eyes. The police officer was getting more aggressive. Maria could see the young man in the car was shaking. He kept saying, "Yes, sir," and "No, sir," but the officer seemed angry about everything. The situation was getting worse by the minute. Maria had seen things like this before, during her time in the service. She knew how quickly situations could turn dangerous when people were scared and angry. Her heart started beating faster. She pulled out her phone. Maria wasn't the type to get involved in other people's business, but something told her she should record what was happening. She had read online that people had the right to film police officers when they were doing their job in public places. Standing across the street, Maria started recording. She made sure to keep her distance and stay on the sidewalk. Buddy sat next to her, panting softly in the evening air. She whispered to him, "It's okay, boy, we're just watching." The video on her phone showed everything clearly. The officer was being very rough with the young man who was obviously trying his best to cooperate. Maria felt sick watching it, but she kept recording. Someone needed to see what was really happening. That's when Officer Johnson noticed her. He looked across the street and saw Maria holding up her phone. His whole attitude changed instantly. Instead of focusing on the traffic stop, he started walking toward her with big, angry steps. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" he shouted. Across the street? Maria's heart jumped, but she tried to stay calm. "I'm just standing here, sir. I'm not doing anything wrong." "Turn that thing off right now," Officer Johnson demanded, pointing at her phone. Maria took a deep breath. She remembered reading about her rights online. "Sir, I have the right to record police officers in public. I'm standing on a public sidewalk." This made Officer Johnson even more angry. His face turned red and he started walking faster toward her. Maria felt Buddy press against her leg. The old dog could tell she was scared. "You're interfering with police business," the officer yelled. "Delete that video right now, or you're going to be in big trouble." Maria's hands were shaking now, but she kept holding her phone. "I'm not interfering, sir. I'm just standing here on the sidewalk with my dog." Other people in the neighborhood started coming out of their houses. Mrs. Chen from the corner house stepped onto her porch. A few teenagers stopped their bikes to watch what was happening. Everyone could see that something was very wrong. Officer Johnson pulled out his radio. "I need backup," he said into it. "And bring the K9 unit. We have someone interfering with an arrest." Maria felt her stomach drop. She wasn't interfering with anything. She was just standing across the street, recording like many people did these days. But she could see that Officer Johnson had already made up his mind about what was going to happen. "Sir, I'm not interfering," she said again, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm a veteran. I know the law. I have the right to be here." But Officer Johnson wasn't listening anymore. He kept talking into his radio, asking for more officers to come to the scene. Within 5 minutes, another police car arrived. This one had a big German Shepherd in the back seat. The dog was barking loudly, and Maria could see it jumping around in the car, excited and ready for action. Officer Martinez got out of the second car. She looked confused when she saw the scene. There was Maria, standing quietly with her old dog, holding her phone. There was no crime happening, no violence, no danger to anyone. "What's the situation?" Officer Martinez asked her partner. "She's been recording and interfering with my traffic stop," Officer Johnson lied. "She won't stop when I told her to. We need to arrest her." Officer Martinez looked across the street at Maria, who was still standing in the same spot where she had been the whole time. The older woman with the old golden retriever didn't look like a threat to anyone, but Officer Johnson was her superior, and he was giving her an order. "Bring Rex," he told Officer Martinez, talking about the police dog. "If she won't cooperate, we'll make her cooperate." Maria felt like she was in a bad dream. This couldn't be happening. She was just walking her dog. She was just recording something that was happening in public. She hadn't done anything wrong. The people watching from their porches and yards could see what was really going on. Mrs. Chen started recording with her own phone. The teenagers had their phones out too. Everyone could see that Maria wasn't doing anything dangerous or illegal. But Officer Johnson had already decided what was going to happen. Officer Martinez opened the back of her police car, and Rex jumped out. The German Shepherd was big and strong, trained to catch people who were running from the police. His teeth were white and sharp, and he was pulling hard on his leash, ready to work. "Last warning!" Officer Johnson shouted across the street. "Put that phone down and get on the ground, or we're sending the dog." Maria looked around at all the people watching. She looked down at Buddy, who was now shaking next to her. The old dog had never hurt anyone in his whole life. He was scared and confused by all the shouting and the police dog barking. "Please, sir," Maria called back. "I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just standing here. Please don't do this." But Officer Johnson had already made his choice. He looked at Officer Martinez and gave her a nod. "Send Rex," he ordered. Officer Martinez looked uncomfortable, but she followed the order. She unclipped Rex's leash and pointed toward Maria. "Go get her, Rex." The big German Shepherd ran across the street, heading straight for Maria and Buddy. Maria tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. She was against a fence with no escape. In those terrible seconds before Rex reached her, Maria thought about her family, about her time in the army, about all the things she had survived just to end up here, being attacked for recording a video, on a public street. Buddy, despite being old and slow, tried to protect Maria. The golden retriever stepped in front of her, but he was no match for the police dog. What happened next would be recorded by 5 different people on their phones. It would be seen by millions of people online. It would bring 2 of the world's biggest movie stars into Maria's life. It would change laws and police training. But in that moment, as Rex ran toward her, Maria just held her phone tight and hoped someone would help her. The attack lasted less than a minute, but it felt like forever. Rex grabbed Maria's arm with his teeth, pulling her to the ground. She cried out in pain but didn't fight back. She knew that fighting would only make things worse. Poor old Buddy barked and tried to help, but the stress was too much for his old heart. The golden retriever collapsed on the sidewalk, breathing heavily. When it was over, Maria was bleeding from deep cuts on her arm and leg. Her phone was broken on the ground. Buddy was lying still, his breathing getting weaker and weaker. "Officer," Johnson walked over, acting like he had just done something heroic instead of something terrible. "That's what happens when you don't listen," he said, standing over Maria as she held her injured arm. But he didn't know that Mrs. Chen had recorded everything from her porch. He didn't know that the teenagers had streamed the whole thing live, on social media. He didn't know that his lies were about to be exposed to the whole world. As the ambulance arrived to take Maria to the hospital, and as another car rushed Buddy to the emergency vet, the videos were already being shared online. People were watching what had really happened, and they were angry, very angry. This was just the beginning of a story that would reach the highest levels of Hollywood, change police departments across the country, and show the world how ordinary people could fight back against injustice with nothing but the truth and the help of some very unexpected allies. The next morning, Maria woke up in the hospital bed feeling like she had been hit by a truck. Her left arm was wrapped in thick bandages, and her leg throbbed with pain. 23 stitches held her wounds together, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the heartbreak in her chest. Buddy was gone. The old golden retriever's heart had given out at the emergency vet clinic. 12 years of loyalty, love, and companionship had ended on a sidewalk because she had tried to record a video. Maria stared at the ceiling and cried until no more tears would come. Her sister Rosa rushed into the room, still wearing her work uniform from the night shift at the factory. "Maria, oh my God, are you okay?" "I came as soon as I heard." Maria tried to sit up but winced from the pain. "They killed Buddy, Rosa. They killed my dog for no reason." Rosa's eyes filled with tears. She had watched Maria raise Buddy from a puppy when she came back from the army. That dog had helped Maria through some of her darkest days, when the nightmares from her service kept her awake and the world felt too loud and scary. "The police came by this morning," Rosa said quietly. "They wanted to talk to you about what happened. They said you were interfering with police business." Maria felt anger rise in her chest. Even lying in a hospital bed, they were still trying to make her the bad guy. "I was just standing on the sidewalk, Rosa. I wasn't doing anything wrong." What Maria didn't know was that her story was already spreading across the internet like wildfire. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who lived on the corner, had stayed up all night uploading her video to every social media platform she could find. At 72 years old, she wasn't very good with technology, but her grandson helped her post the footage on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The video was clear and shocking. It showed Maria standing peacefully with her old dog, recording from across the street. It showed Officer Johnson lying about what she was doing. Most importantly, it showed the moment when he ordered the police dog to attack an innocent woman who was just exercising her legal rights. By sunrise, the video had been shared over 10,000 times. People were outraged. Comments poured in from all over the country, with people sharing their own stories of police misconduct and expressing sympathy for Maria and her beloved dog. The teenagers who had been riding their bikes that night had also posted their own videos. One of them, a 16-year-old named Kevin, had actually live-streamed the entire incident on his social media account. Over 2,000 people had watched it happen in real time, and they had recorded it on their own devices. But the police department was working hard to control the story. Chief Williams held a press conference that afternoon. Standing behind a podium with the American flag in the background, he looked straight into the cameras and lied through his teeth. "Last night, our officers responded to reports of someone interfering with a traffic stop," he said in his most official voice. The suspect was aggressive and non-compliant, refusing multiple orders to stop interfering with police business. Our officers used appropriate force to bring the situation under control. The reporters in the room asked questions, but Chief Williams had his answers ready. He claimed that Maria had been yelling and making threats. He said she had tried to incite the crowd that was watching. He even suggested that she might have been drunk or on drugs. None of it was true, but he said it with such confidence that some people believed him. The police department also announced that they had confiscated Maria's phone as evidence in an ongoing investigation. They claimed the phone contained important evidence that needed to be examined by their technical team. What they really wanted was to delete the video Maria had taken before anyone could see it. But they were too late. The damage was already done. Social media users had downloaded and saved all the videos before the police could stop them. Tech-savvy people had made backup copies and uploaded them to video-sharing sites where they couldn't be taken down. The hashtag Justice for Maria started trending in their city, then across the state, and finally nationwide. Local news stations picked up the story, but their coverage was mixed. Some reporters simply repeated what the police chief had said, presenting both sides as if they were equally valid. Others dug deeper, interviewing witnesses and examining the video evidence. Channel 7's investigative reporter, Lisa Park, was one of the few journalists who took the time to really look into what had happened. She interviewed Mrs. Chen, who spoke perfect English despite the police chief's suggestion that there might have been a language barrier affecting witness statements. "I saw everything," Mrs. Chen told the camera, her voice steady and clear. That woman was not doing anything wrong. She was just standing there with her old dog. The police officer lied about what happened, and now that poor dog is dead for no reason. Lisa Park also discovered something else troubling. This wasn't Officer Johnson's first incident. Over the past 5 years, he had received 17 complaints for excessive force. Families had accused him of roughing up teenagers, using unnecessary violence during arrests, and showing particular hostility toward veterans and minorities. But every single complaint had been dismissed by the Internal Affairs Department. Officer Johnson had never faced any serious consequences for his actions. The story ran on the evening news, and suddenly more people were paying attention. But Maria, lying in her hospital bed, didn't know about any of this yet. She was too heartbroken and in too much pain to check social media. Rosa tried to cheer her up by bringing flowers and Maria's favorite cookies from the bakery downtown. "The whole neighborhood is talking about what happened," she said. "Everyone knows you didn't do anything wrong." But Maria felt hopeless. "What's the point, Rosa? It's my word against theirs, and who's going to believe me? I'm just a waitress who lives in a small apartment. They're the police." Rosa held her sister's hand. "You're not just a waitress, Maria. You're a veteran who served her country. You're a good person who was trying to do the right thing. And you're not alone in this." That afternoon, Rosa decided to do something she had never done before. She created a GoFundMe page to help with Maria's medical bills and legal expenses. Rosa wasn't good with computers, but she spent hours writing and rewriting the description, trying to tell her sister's story in a way that would make people care. "My sister Maria is a good person," she wrote. "She served in the army and came home to work hard and take care of herself and her dog. All she did was record a video on a public street, which is her legal right. Now she's in the hospital, her dog is dead, and the police are trying to make her look like the bad guy. Please help us fight for justice." Rosa set the fundraising goal at $5,000, hoping it would be enough to help with the immediate expenses. She shared the link with her friends and family, but most of them didn't have much money to spare either. For the first week, the campaign raised only $300. Meanwhile, the police department was doubling down on their false story. They released a second statement claiming that Maria had a history of mental health issues related to her military service, suggesting that she might have been having a breakdown that night. They implied that her version of events couldn't be trusted because of her PTSD. This made Rosa furious. Her sister had worked hard to overcome the challenges she faced after coming home from war. She had gone to therapy, taken medication when she needed it, and built a stable life for herself. Using her military service against her was not just wrong, it was cruel. But the police department's lies were starting to fall apart. More and more people were sharing the videos online, and anyone with eyes could see what had really happened. The contrast between the police chief's statements and the actual footage was so stark that even people who usually supported law enforcement were starting to ask questions. National civil rights organizations began to take notice. The American Civil Liberties Union issued a statement condemning the incident and calling for a federal investigation. Veterans advocacy groups expressed outrage that a former service member had been treated this way. But the biggest break came from an unexpected source. A cybersecurity expert who went by the username Truth Seeker had been following the story online. This person had skills that most people couldn't even imagine. They managed to recover additional footage from nearby security cameras that the police hadn't known existed. The recovered footage showed Officer Johnson's entire interaction with the original traffic stop. It revealed that the young man he had pulled over had been completely cooperative and polite. There had been no resistance, no threatening behavior, and no reason for the officer to be yelling and acting aggressively. More importantly, the security footage showed Maria arriving at the scene and simply standing on the sidewalk recording peacefully. It proved beyond any doubt that she had never interfered, never yelled, and never done anything that could justify what happened to her. Truth Seeker uploaded this footage to multiple platforms simultaneously, making it impossible for the police to claim it was fake or taken out of context. Within hours, it had been viewed over 1 million times. The tide was finally turning, but Maria still didn't know how big this story was becoming. She was scheduled to be released from the hospital the next day, and all she could think about was going home to an empty apartment without Buddy waiting for her. She had no idea that her story was about to catch the attention of two of the biggest movie stars in the world, or that her fight for justice was about to become a movement that would change everything. 3 weeks after the incident, Maria was sitting in her empty apartment, staring at Buddy's old food bowl. She hadn't been able to throw it away yet. Every morning she still expected to see him waiting by the door, tail wagging, ready for his walk. The physical wounds were healing slowly, but the emotional pain felt like it would never go away. Rosa visited every day, bringing groceries and trying to keep Maria's spirits up, but nothing seemed to help. "You need to eat something," Rosa said, setting a plate of homemade soup on the coffee table. "You're getting too thin." Maria picked at the food without really tasting it. "I keep thinking about that night, Rosa. What if I had just minded my own business? What if I hadn't taken out my phone? Buddy would still be alive." Rosa sat down next to her sister and took her hand. "Don't blame yourself. You did nothing wrong. You were trying to help someone, and that's who you are. That's who you've always been." The GoFundMe campaign Rosa had started was still struggling. After 3 weeks, it had only raised $800. Most of their friends and neighbors wanted to help, but they were working people with their own bills to pay. $800 wouldn't even cover Maria's first physical therapy session. What Maria didn't know was that her story was about to take a turn that nobody could have predicted. 2,000 miles away in Los Angeles, John Cena was having his morning coffee and scrolling through social media before heading to the gym. As someone who regularly supported veterans' causes, his team had set up his social media accounts to show him stories involving former military members. That's how he came across Maria's story. The video hit him like a punch to the gut. Here was a veteran, someone who had served her country, being attacked by the very people who were supposed to protect her. And for what? For recording a video, which was completely legal. But what really got to John was the part about Buddy. John had grown up with dogs, and he knew how much they meant to their families. The thought of an innocent old dog dying from the stress of watching his owner being attacked made John's blood boil. He immediately called his assistant. "I need you to find out everything you can about this Maria woman and what happened to her, and I want to know how we can help." Within 2 hours, John's team had gathered all the information they could find. They learned about Maria's military service, her quiet life working at the diner, and how she had never been in any kind of trouble before. They also found Rosa's GoFundMe page and saw how little money had been raised. John made a decision that would change everything. Meanwhile, Dwayne Johnson was in Atlanta, taking a break between filming scenes for his latest movie. His co-star for this film happened to be John Cena, and they had been doing interviews together to promote their upcoming project. During lunch, John couldn't stop thinking about Maria's story. He pulled out his phone and showed Dwayne the video. "Man, you've got to see this," John said, his voice serious. "This is messed up." Dwayne watched the footage, his expression getting darker with each passing second. As someone who had always been passionate about justice and helping underdogs, he felt his anger rising. Like John, he was particularly upset about what happened to the dog. "This is wrong on so many levels," Dwayne said after watching the video twice. "That woman was just standing there and they attacked her for no reason. And that poor dog." The two movie stars spent the rest of their lunch break researching Maria's case. They read the news articles, watched all the different video angles, and learned about the police department's attempts to cover up what had really happened. "We have to do something," John said. "We can't just sit here knowing about this and do nothing." Dwayne nodded. "Absolutely. But we need to be smart about it. We want to help her, not make things worse." They decided to coordinate their response carefully. Both men had massive social media followings, and they understood the power that came with that influence. If they were going to speak out, they wanted to make sure they did it right. John's Instagram account had over 50 million followers. Dwayne's social media presence was even bigger, with hundreds of millions of followers across different platforms. Together, they could reach more people than most television networks. That evening, John posted first. He created a video message, sitting in his home gym, speaking directly to the camera in his typical earnest, heartfelt way. "Hey everyone, I want to talk to you about something serious today," he began. "I came across a story that really bothered me, and I think it's going to bother you too." He went on to explain Maria's situation, being careful to stick to the facts that were clearly shown in the video evidence. He talked about her service in the military, her quiet life working to support herself, and the tragic death of her beloved dog. "This woman served our country," John said, his voice getting more passionate. "She came home and built a life for herself, working hard and staying out of trouble. All she did was record a video on a public street, which is her legal right as an American citizen. And for that, she was attacked and her dog died." John's post included a link to Rosa's GoFundMe campaign. "If you believe in justice, if you believe that veterans deserve better treatment than this, please consider helping Maria with her medical bills and legal expenses. And please share her story so more people know what really happened." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour, John's post had been shared thousands of times. Comments poured in from people expressing outrage at what had happened and support for Maria. But the real explosion came when Dwayne posted his own message 2 hours later. Dwayne chose to focus on the broader issues that Maria's case represented. His post was longer and more detailed, discussing police accountability, the rights of citizens to record public officials, and the special debt society owed to veterans. "I've been following this story, and it breaks my heart," Dwayne wrote. "This is about more than one incident. This is about whether we're going to hold people accountable when they abuse their power. This is about whether we're going to protect the rights that make America great." Like John, Dwayne included the link to Maria's fundraising campaign. But he also did something else. He announced that his production company would be making a donation to help with Maria's legal fees, and he challenged other celebrities and business leaders to step up as well. The impact was incredible. Within 24 hours of the two posts going live, Maria's GoFundMe campaign exploded from $800 to over $150,000. The money was coming in so fast that Rosa could barely keep track of it. But more importantly, Maria's story was now being seen by millions of people around the world. Major news networks picked up the story, and suddenly reporters were calling Rosa's phone nonstop, wanting interviews. The police department, which had been confident that they had successfully buried the story, was now facing a firestorm of criticism. Their phone lines were jammed with calls from angry citizens demanding answers. Protesters began gathering outside the police station, holding signs with pictures of Buddy and demanding justice for Maria. Back in her apartment, Maria was overwhelmed by what was happening. Rosa had shown her the celebrity posts, and Maria couldn't believe that two of the biggest movie stars in the world knew her name and cared about what had happened to her. "I don't understand," Maria said, tears streaming down her face. "Why would they help me? They don't even know me." Rosa hugged her sister tight, "Because they're good people and they recognize another good person when they see one. And because what happened to you was wrong, and they're not afraid to say so." The attention wasn't just online. John and Dwayne both had their representatives reach out to Rosa directly, offering additional support beyond just the social media posts. John's charitable foundation offered to cover Maria's ongoing medical expenses, while Dwayne's team connected her with top civil rights attorneys who were willing to take her case. The legal help was especially important. The attorneys explained to Maria that she had strong grounds for a federal civil rights lawsuit. The video evidence clearly showed that her constitutional rights had been violated, and the police department's attempts to cover up the truth only made their case stronger. But the celebrity's involvement also brought some unexpected challenges. Officer Johnson and his supporters began claiming that Maria was just seeking attention and money from famous people. They tried to paint her as someone who was taking advantage of celebrity generosity. This criticism hurt Maria deeply. She had never wanted to be famous or to have her personal tragedy become a public spectacle. All she had ever wanted was to live quietly with her dog and do her job at the diner. John and Dwayne seemed to understand this. Neither of them tried to use Maria's story for their own publicity. They didn't invite her to movie premieres or red carpet events. Instead, they kept their focus on supporting her fight for justice and pushing for the changes that would prevent this from happening to other people. The pressure on the police department was becoming unbearable. The FBI announced that they were opening a civil rights investigation into Maria's case. The state attorney general's office launched their own inquiry into the department's practices and training procedures. Officer Johnson was finally suspended from duty, pending the outcome of the investigations. Officer Martinez, who had been following his orders that night, was also placed on administrative leave. For the first time since that terrible evening, Maria began to feel like maybe, just maybe, justice might actually be possible. She had two of the world's biggest movie stars fighting in her corner, lawyers working on her case, and millions of people around the world who knew the truth about what had happened. But the real fight was just beginning. 6 months after that terrible night on Maple Street, Maria walked into the federal courthouse wearing her best dress and carrying a folder full of legal documents. Her arm had healed completely, but she still had small scars that would remind her of that night for the rest of her life. Rosa walked beside her, squeezing her hand for support. "You ready for this?" she asked. Maria took a deep breath and nodded. "I've been ready since the day they hurt Buddy." The courthouse was packed with reporters, photographers, and supporters who had followed Maria's story from the beginning. Mrs. Chen was there, sitting in the front row with her grandson. The teenagers who had recorded the incident were there, too, now seen as heroes for documenting the truth. But the biggest surprise was sitting in the back of the courtroom. John Cena had flown in specifically for this hearing, keeping his promise to support Maria throughout the legal process. He wore a simple suit and sunglasses, trying not to draw attention to himself, but his presence meant everything to Maria. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of investigations, legal meetings, and media attention. The FBI's civil rights investigation had uncovered a pattern of misconduct within the police department that went far beyond just Officer Johnson. Internal documents showed that complaints against officers were routinely dismissed without proper investigation, and that there was an unwritten policy of protecting officers even when they clearly violated people's rights. The state attorney general's investigation had been even more damaging to the police department. They found evidence that Chief Williams had personally ordered the cover-up of Maria's case, instructing officers to lie in their reports and pressuring witnesses to change their stories. Officer Johnson himself had been arrested on federal civil rights charges 3 months earlier. The evidence against him was overwhelming, not just from Maria's case but from other incidents that had come to light during the investigation. Families who had been too scared to speak up before were now coming forward with their own stories of his misconduct. Today was the day when Maria would finally face the people who had wronged her in court. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, named Judge Patricia Williams, called the court to order. She had been following the case closely and had already reviewed all the evidence multiple times. "This case," Judge Williams began, "represents a serious violation of constitutional rights and a betrayal of the public trust. The evidence shows clearly that Maria Torres was doing nothing illegal when she was attacked by a police dog on the orders of Officer Johnson." Maria's lawyer, a sharp civil rights attorney named David Kim, who had taken her case pro bono after Dwayne Johnson's team connected them, stood up to present the final arguments. "Your Honor," he said, "this case is about more than just one woman and her dog. This is about whether citizens have the right to hold their government accountable. Maria Torres was exercising her First Amendment right to record police officers in public when she was brutally attacked for no reason other than Officer Johnson's ego and desire to cover up his own misconduct." The defense lawyer tried to argue that Officer Johnson had been following proper procedures, but his arguments fell flat in the face of overwhelming video evidence. Multiple camera angles showed clearly that Maria had never posed any threat to anyone. The most powerful moment came when they played Mrs. Chen's video in court. Even though everyone had seen it many times before, watching it on the big screen in the silent courtroom was heartbreaking. You could hear Maria trying to explain her rights calmly and peacefully. You could see poor old Buddy trying to protect her at the end. Several people in the courtroom were crying by the time the video finished. Judge Williams announced her decision without hesitation. The city will pay Maria Torres $1.2 million in damages for the violation of her civil rights, her medical expenses, and the wrongful death of her service animal. Officer Johnson will serve 18 months in federal prison and will never be allowed to work in law enforcement again. The courtroom erupted in applause. Maria broke down crying. Not from sadness this time, but from relief. After 6 months of fighting, justice had finally been served, but the judge wasn't finished yet. Furthermore, Judge Williams continued, this court orders the police department to implement immediate reforms to their K-9 unit policies, their complaint investigation procedures, and their training programs. Maria Torres will serve as a consultant on these reforms to ensure they are meaningful and effective. This was something Maria hadn't expected, but it felt right. If her terrible experience could prevent this from happening to other people, then maybe Buddy's death wouldn't have been completely in vain. After the hearing, Maria was surrounded by reporters asking for comments. She had gotten better at dealing with the media attention over the past few months, but she still felt nervous, speaking in front of cameras. I never wanted to be famous, she said, her voice steady but emotional. I just wanted justice for what happened to me and my dog. But now that I have this platform, I want to use it to make sure this never happens to anyone else. John Cena approached her after the press conference, giving her a hug and congratulating her on the victory. I'm proud of you, he said simply. You never gave up, and you made a difference. Over the next few weeks, Maria used the settlement money to do something she had been dreaming about since the night Buddy died. She established the Buddy Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping veterans who had been treated unfairly by the system and providing therapy animals to people dealing with trauma. Dwayne Johnson became an official advisor to the foundation, helping Maria navigate the complicated world of running a nonprofit. John Cena contributed not just money but also his time, appearing at fundraising events and helping spread awareness about the foundation's work. The police department reforms were more extensive than anyone had expected. The new policies required officers to have clear justification before using K-9 units, mandated body cameras for all interactions with the public, and created an independent review board to investigate complaints against officers. Maria worked closely with the department during the reform process, something that felt strange at first. Some officers resented her involvement, but others were grateful for the changes. Many good cops had been frustrated by the culture of covering up misconduct, and they welcomed the chance to do their jobs properly. Officer Martinez, who had been following Officer Johnson's orders that night, was allowed to keep her job after completing additional training and community service. She personally apologized to Maria during one of their reform meetings, and Maria could see that she was genuinely sorry for her role in what had happened. I should have questioned the order, Officer Martinez said, tears in her eyes. I knew it wasn't right, but I was afraid to speak up. I'll never make that mistake again. Maria accepted the apology. We all make mistakes, she said. What matters is that we learn from them and do better next time. The reforms in Maria's city became a model for police departments across the country. Other cities began implementing similar changes, and Maria was invited to speak at law enforcement conferences about the importance of accountability and transparency. But the most meaningful change was in Maria's own life. The Buddy Foundation was helping dozens of veterans every month, connecting them with therapy animals, legal assistance, and support services. Maria had found a new purpose that gave meaning to everything she had been through. 1 year after the incident, Maria stood in the same spot on Maple Street where Buddy had died. The city had installed a small memorial plaque in his honor, recognizing him as a therapy animal who had served his community faithfully until the end. Rosa stood beside her, along with Mrs. Chen and several other neighbors who had supported Maria throughout her fight for justice. He would be proud of you, Rosa said, putting her arm around her sister's shoulders. Maria smiled through her tears. I think he would. All he ever wanted was to help people and make them feel safe. Now, through the foundation, he's still doing that. The memorial plaque was simple but beautiful. It read, "In memory of Buddy, a faithful companion who taught us that love and loyalty should never be forgotten. May his legacy inspire us to treat all creatures with kindness and respect." John Cena and Dwayne Johnson both sent video messages for the memorial service, thanking Buddy for his service and promising to continue supporting the foundation's work. Their ongoing involvement had helped the organization grow faster than Maria had ever imagined possible. Looking back, Maria sometimes wondered what would have happened if she had just walked past that traffic stop without taking out her phone. Buddy would still be alive, and she would still be working quietly at the diner unknown to the world. But then she thought about all the people the Buddy Foundation had helped. Veterans who had been struggling alone now had support and companionship. Police departments across the country were treating people more fairly because of the reforms her case had inspired. Thousands of therapy animals had been placed with families who needed them. Maria realized that everything happens for a reason, even the terrible things. Buddy's death had been senseless and wrong, but the fight for justice that followed had created something beautiful and lasting. As she walked away from the memorial, that day Maria felt her old dog's presence beside her, the way she always did when she was doing something that mattered. She was no longer just a waitress trying to get by. She was an advocate, a voice for people who couldn't speak up for themselves, and the guardian of Buddy's legacy. The story that had started with injustice and heartbreak had become something bigger than anyone could have imagined. It had shown the world that ordinary people could fight back against powerful systems and win, especially when good people with big platforms were willing to help. Most importantly, it had proven that love and loyalty, like the bond between Maria and Buddy, could change the world.